"You're just the plus one," her mom told me at dinner, loud enough for the table to hear. The bill arrived seconds later, sliding across the white tablecloth toward me like a snake. I looked down at the total, $243, and felt everyone's eyes on my hands. This wasn't my celebration. It was Sarah's birthday, her family's tradition, her mother's restaurant choice. But the leather folder sat in front of me, waiting. Sarah's father adjusted his cufflinks and looked past me toward the sommelier. Her brother smirked into his wine glass. And Sarah, my girlfriend of 3 years, the woman I'd moved to Philadelphia for, said nothing. She studied the dessert menu like it held answers to questions nobody asked. I picked up the folder. Inside, itemized in perfect script, were bottles I didn't drink, appetizers I didn't order, and a birthday cake for 20 people when our table sat 8. The waiter hovered. Sarah's mother dabbed her mouth with her napkin, leaving a wine-colored lipstick print on the white linen. She wore pearls that caught the candlelight, and her smile was thin and sharp. "Sarah mentioned you got that promotion," she said, her voice carrying false warmth. "So generous of you to treat us tonight." It wasn't a question. It wasn't even a suggestion. It was an assumption dressed up as gratitude, and I understood then that this moment had been choreographed long before I sat down. My name is Marcus, and this is my revenge story. But before we continue, don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a comment with the city you're watching from. It really helps me bring you more stories. I reached for my wallet. The leather was worn at the corners, bought back when I thought quality meant something people could see. My credit card slid out, black plastic that promised more than my bank account could deliver. I'd been saving for a ring. 4 months of careful budgeting, skipped lunches, overtime shifts at the firm where I worked as a junior analyst. The number I'd reached sat in my savings, $6,200, just enough for the vintage setting Sarah had shown me on her Pinterest board. She'd shown me twice, actually, the second time with her hand on my chest, her voice soft with manufactured casualness. But sitting there, watching her mother's manicured nails drum against the table, I realized Sarah had shown her mother too. The waiter processed the payment. 3 minutes stretched into something geological. Sarah's father talked about his yacht club, words like regatta and Commodore floating past me. Her brother mentioned his medical residency for the 4th time that night. I watched Sarah laugh at her father's joke, her hand touching his arm with an ease she'd never shown touching mine. She wore the earrings I'd bought her, small diamonds I'd saved 2 months for, but she told her mother they were from her previous boyfriend, the one who worked in private equity. I'd overheard that conversation last Christmas, standing in the hallway outside her childhood bedroom, holding 2 glasses of champagne I'd been sent to fetch. The receipt printed. I signed it, added 20% because anything less would be commented on, and slid it back. Sarah's mother glanced at the total and smiled. "See, Sarah? I told you he was a provider." The word hung in the air like smoke. Not partner, not boyfriend. Provider. A function, not a person. Sarah looked at me then. Really looked, and I saw something flicker in her eyes. Maybe guilt, maybe calculation. She reached for my hand under the table, squeezed it once, and I felt nothing. The gesture was choreographed too, performed for witnesses, signifying nothing beyond appearance. We left the restaurant into February cold. Philadelphia wind cut through my coat, the one I'd bought at Burlington because Sarah said we needed to save money. She wore cashmere, a Christmas gift from her parents, red like everything else they'd given her. Red scarf, red gloves, red life insulated from consequences. Her family walked ahead to their cars, German sedans parked in reserved spots. Sarah and I had taken the subway, would take it back, would walk 4 blocks to our apartment in a neighborhood her mother called transitional. I watched them disappear into leather seats and heated steering wheels, and I felt the weight of something shift inside my chest. Sarah linked her arm through mine. "Thank you for tonight," she said. "I know Mom can be intense." Intense. The word tasted like copper, like blood from a bitten tongue. I'd heard that word before. Intense when her mother suggested I dress better. Intense when her father asked about my college loans. Intense when her brother corrected my pronunciation of Bordeaux. Always intense, never wrong, never cruel, never calculating, just intense, like weather, like something natural and unavoidable that I should learn to endure with grace and silence. I nodded because I'd learned that nodding cost nothing and revealed less. We descended into the subway station. The fluorescent lights made everyone look sick, drained of color and warmth. A man played saxophone for dollar bills, the sound echoing off tile walls. Sarah scrolled through her phone, liking photos of the dinner her brother had already posted. Photos that included everyone but me. I stood on the platform and watched a rat move along the tracks with more purpose than I'd shown in months. The train arrived, doors opening to stale air and empty seats. We rode in silence, and I understood that silence was my inheritance, my role, my place in her family's narrative. The +1, the one who paid but didn't belong, who provided but didn't matter, who existed in margins and footnotes and receipts nobody kept. The apartment was dark when we entered. Sarah turned on lights with the casual entitlement of someone who'd never worried about the electric bill. I'd been paying it for 8 months, since she'd quit her gallery job to find herself through a certificate program in art curation that cost $3,000 and met twice a week. She dropped her coat on the chair, the red cashmere crumpling like a discarded thought. I hung mine in the closet next to her summer dresses and winter boots, all organized by color and season, a rainbow of privilege I'd somehow agreed to finance. She disappeared into the bathroom. I heard water running, her nighttime routine beginning, the one with 7 steps and products from Sephora that arrived in packages I signed for while she slept. I sat on the edge of our bed, the mattress we'd bought together, though I'd paid for it across 6 monthly installments. The receipt was still in my email, along with receipts for everything else: furniture, groceries, utilities, her phone bill since April. I'd started keeping them without knowing why, some instinct whispering that proof might matter someday. Now I understood. Documentation wasn't paranoia. It was preparation. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother in Detroit. "How was dinner, baby?" She still called me baby, even at 32, even though I'd told her about Sarah's family, about the restaurants and the wine and the way they looked at me like I was help. My mother cleaned houses for 30 years, put me through state school, taught me that dignity wasn't something people gave you, it was something you carried yourself. I typed back, "Good, talk tomorrow." The lie felt necessary, protective. She'd worked too hard to hear that her son had become someone's accessory, someone's wallet with a pulse. Sarah emerged in silk pajamas, another gift from her mother. She climbed into bed beside me, smelling like expensive face cream and botanical shampoo. "You okay?" she asked, her voice carrying the slight concern of someone remembering they should ask. I nodded. She kissed my cheek, a gesture as empty as her mother's smile, and turned away. Within minutes, her breathing deepened into sleep. I lay awake, staring at ceiling cracks that formed patterns like maps to places I'd never go, countries I'd never see, because every dollar went to maintaining someone else's comfort. I thought about the ring I'd been saving for, $6,200 sitting in an account I'd opened specifically for that purpose. Sarah didn't know about it. I'd wanted it to be a surprise, the kind of moment she'd photograph and post, the kind of story she'd tell at brunches and baby showers. But lying there, listening to her peaceful sleep, I realized she'd already told the story. I was already cast, the provider, the +1, the man who'd propose with a ring her mother would examine and compare, whose value would be mentioned at family gatherings, whose adequacy would be measured in carats and clarity. I got up carefully, not wanting to wake her. The apartment was small, 1 bedroom in a building where the heat clanked and the neighbors fought every Thursday. Sarah called it cozy. Her previous apartment, the one her parents paid for, had been in Rittenhouse Square. This was my apartment, my lease, my deposit. She'd moved in gradually, a drawer, then a closet, then half the space, then all of it. I'd never asked her to pay rent. She'd never offered. It had seemed romantic at first, like partnership. Now it seemed like something else entirely. I opened my laptop at the kitchen table. The blue light illuminated the small space. Tile I'd scrubbed, dishes I'd washed, a life I'd built for two that only sustained one. I logged into my bank account and looked at the numbers. Checking, $842. Savings, $6,200, untouched. Credit card, $6,100, most of it accumulated in the last 4 months. Dinners, clothes for events I wasn't invited to. Ubers to places I couldn't afford to enter. A birthday cake for 20 people at a table set for 8. I clicked through my email, searching for one name, Brandon Chen. We'd gone to Penn State together, studied finance in adjacent dorm rooms, graduated the same year. He'd gone to Goldman Sachs. I'd gone to a regional firm that promised growth but delivered stagnation. We'd stayed in touch, loosely, through LinkedIn and occasional texts. 6 months ago, he'd reached out about a position at his company, something in risk analysis, something with a salary that had made my hands shake when I saw the number. I'd told him I'd think about it. Then I'd asked Sarah. She'd said Philadelphia was her home, her family was here, her program was here. She'd said it while wearing a sweater I'd bought her in an apartment I paid for, eating takeout I'd ordered, and I'd said, okay. I found his last email, dated August 14th. Offer still stands if you change your mind. We need people who think different. Call me. I stared at the words until they blurred. The clock on the microwave read 2:47. Sarah slept peacefully in the next room, dreaming dreams I'd never be part of, living a life I was expected to fund but never inhabit. And I thought about my mother's hands, worn from work that mattered, and about dignity, and about the difference between being chosen and being useful. I closed the laptop and returned to bed. Sarah hadn't moved. I lay beside her, not touching, not sleeping, just thinking. The ceiling cracks formed new patterns now, roads instead of countries, paths instead of destinations. And somewhere in the dark, in the space between her breathing and my thinking, I made a decision that felt like falling and flying at the same time. Monday arrived with rain that turned Philadelphia gray. I took the subway to work, standing in a car packed with people whose faces showed the particular exhaustion of those who work hard for modest return. The firm where I worked occupied 3 floors of a building downtown, glass and steel that promised innovation but delivered spreadsheets. I'd been there 4 years, long enough to understand that junior analyst was a title they gave you to avoid paying you properly. My boss, Richard, was 57 and called everyone champ. He'd never learned my name. I sat at my desk and opened the Hoffman account, manufacturing data I'd been compiling for 6 weeks. Profit margins, supply chain vulnerabilities, competitive positioning. Good work, thorough work, the kind that should have earned me the promotion to senior analyst. Instead, they'd given it to Kevin, who'd started 8 months after me and whose father played golf with the managing partner. Kevin now made $78,000. I made $52,000. We did the same job. He did it worse. My phone buzzed. Sarah, can you Venmo me for groceries? $140. I looked at the message, at the casual assumption, at the number that represented a quarter of my weekly take-home. I checked my account. $842 minus $243 from Saturday minus $140 now. I Venmo'd her. She sent back a heart emoji. No thank you, no acknowledgement. Just a heart, empty as the gesture, signifying nothing. Lunch came. I ate a sandwich I'd made at home, turkey and cheese on bread that was 1 day from stale. Kevin ate sushi delivered from the place on Market Street. $30 rolls arranged like art. He talked about his weekend, a ski trip to Vermont, his girlfriend's family's cabin. I listened the way you listen to foreign language films without subtitles, hearing sounds, understanding nothing, feeling the distance between his life and mine grow with each word. Richard walked by, clapped Kevin's shoulder, called him champ, looked at me, nodded, kept walking. At 3, I went to the bathroom and called Brandon from a stall. He answered on the second ring. Marcus, tell me you're finally ready to stop wasting your talent. His voice carried the confidence of someone whose decisions had been validated by success. I looked at the gray tile, The water-stained ceiling, the institutional mirror that made everyone look defeated. "Tell me about the position," I said. "Everything." He talked for 12 minutes. Risk analysis team, direct report to the VP, salary starting at $95,000, bonus structure, relocation package to New York. The words felt like oxygen after years of shallow breathing. "You'd start in 3 weeks," he said. "We need someone fast. I told them about you, about your work. They want to interview Wednesday, if you can make it." I thought about Sarah, about her program, about her family's expectations. Then I thought about my mother's hands and the word provider, and the way Sarah's mother had smiled when I'd signed that receipt. "I can make it," I said. I returned to my desk and worked with focus I hadn't felt in months. The Hoffman analysis took shape, clean and thorough, demonstrating value I'd never been acknowledged for. At 6, Kevin left for drinks with Richard. At 7, the floor emptied. At 8, I finished the report and emailed it to Richard with copies to the managing partner and the client. Subject line: Hoffman Manufacturing, complete risk assessment and growth strategy. I attached 43 pages of work they'd never properly compensate me for. Then I cleared my desk of everything personal. The subway home was empty. I sat by a window and watched the city pass. Lights in windows where other people lived other lives, made other choices, loved other people who loved them back. My phone buzzed. "Sarah. Staying at my mom's tonight. She needs help with something. There's leftover pasta in the fridge. No question about my day. No interest in my absence. Just information delivered like a weather report, impersonal and assumed." I got off at my stop and walked the 4 blocks in rain that had turned to mist. The apartment was dark, quiet, mine. I turned on one lamp and sat at the kitchen table. The laptop opened to Brandon's email, to the offer that still stood, to the life that required only one word: yes. I thought about Sarah, about 3 years, about the person I'd tried to be for someone who'd never seen me. Then I thought about the person I'd stopped being, the one my mother raised, the one who understood that love wasn't supposed to feel like employment. I typed the email. "Brandon, I'm in. Wednesday works. Thank you for believing in something I'd almost forgotten." I hit send before I could reconsider. The whoosh sound felt final, like doors closing and opening simultaneously. I sat in the silence of my empty apartment and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Not happiness exactly. Not relief. Something harder and colder and more necessary. I felt awake. Wednesday morning, I told Richard I had a doctor's appointment. He barely looked up, just waved his hand in dismissal. I wore my interview suit, the charcoal one I'd bought for Sarah's cousin's wedding, the one she'd said made me look like management. I took the train to New York, watching Pennsylvania turn to New Jersey, turn to tunnels that delivered me into Penn Station at 9:30. The city moved faster than Philadelphia, everyone walking with purpose, with places to be and people to disappoint them if they arrived late. Goldman Sachs occupied floors that required special elevator access. The lobby was marble and glass, the kind of clean that required constant maintenance. Brandon met me in reception, wearing confidence like cologne. We'd both been broke college students once, sharing ramen and textbooks. Now he wore a watch that cost more than my car. "You look good," he said, lying kindly. "Ready to remember what you're worth?" We took the elevator to the 42nd floor, and I felt gravity shift, pulling me toward something that felt like forward. The interview lasted 90 minutes. 3 people, questions about risk assessment and portfolio management, and situations I'd handled poorly at my current job but would handle better here. I told the truth, that I'd been undervalued, underutilized, kept in a position that served the company's budget rather than its interests. The VP, a woman named Jennifer who wore her authority quietly, nodded. "We don't hire people to stay small," she said. "We hire people to grow. The question is whether you remember how." I thought about Saturday dinner, about being the +1, about signing receipts for celebrations that weren't mine. "I remember," I said. "I just forgot for a while that I had a choice." Jennifer smiled, the kind of smile that suggested she'd forgotten too. Once, before remembering cost her something. The interview ended with handshakes and timeline discussions. They'd let me know by Friday. Brandon walked me out, past offices where people did work that mattered to people who noticed. "You crushed it," he said. "Pack your bags. You're done being invisible." The train back to Philadelphia felt different, like I was watching my old life from outside it. I arrived at 4 and went straight to the office. Richard was in a meeting. Kevin sat at his desk scrolling through his phone. The Hoffman report I'd sent Monday sat printed on Richard's desk, coffee ring staining the cover page, notes in the margins. "Good work, strong analysis. Show Kevin." I picked it up and put it in my bag. Evidence. Documentation. Proof of value given and dismissed. I worked until 7, then took the subway home. Sarah was there cooking pasta with vegetables, trying. She'd set the table, opened wine, put on music. "I thought we should have a nice dinner," she said. "Just us. I feel like we haven't connected lately." She wore the dress I'd complimented once, 6 months ago, remembering details when it served her purpose. I sat down and let her serve me, watching her perform care like a rehearsed scene, wondering what prompted this sudden attention. We ate. She talked about her program, about a paper she was writing on postmodern curation, about a gallery opening Friday her mother had tickets for. "You should come," she said, "meet some of my classmates." I'd met her classmates before, at events where they discussed art I'd never afford and trips I'd never take. I was always introduced the same way. "This is Marcus, my boyfriend. Never my name first, never my accomplishments. Just the relationship, the role, the fact of my existence in proximity to hers." "I might have to work Friday," I said. She frowned, the expression fleeting, replaced quickly by understanding that looked manufactured. "Oh, okay. Well, if you finish early." She cleared the plates, loaded the dishwasher I'd installed, wiped counters I'd cleaned 1,000 times. "I was thinking," she said, her back to me, voice careful, "maybe we should talk about next steps. You know, for us." Next steps. The phrase hung in the air like a trap. I waited. She turned, leaning against the counter, wineglass in hand. "My mom asked when we're getting engaged. She thinks 3 years is enough time to know." Her mom, not Sarah. Her mom thought, her mom asked, her mom decided. Sarah just delivered the message, the messenger absolved of responsibility. I looked at her, really looked, and saw someone I'd loved becoming someone I didn't recognize. Or maybe I saw clearly for the first time. Maybe she'd always been this person, and I'd been too busy trying to be enough to notice. "What do you think?" I asked. She blinked, surprised by the question, by being asked to have an opinion that wasn't borrowed. I mean, we're good together. You're stable. You take care of things." Stable. Take care of things. Not loved, not cherished, not chosen. Stable. Like furniture, like a utility bill. Like something necessary but unremarkable. I nodded slowly, understanding settling in my chest like cold water. "I got a job offer," I said. "In New York. 95,000 to start." Her face went through changes. Surprise, calculation, concern. "New York," she said. "But my program, my family. We're here. We. Always we, but only when it served her geography, her plans, her life." "I haven't accepted yet," I said. "I wanted to talk to you first." It was a test, maybe cruel, but necessary. She set down her wineglass, crossed her arms. "Marcus, I can't just leave. This is my home. You know that." I did know. I'd always known. And sitting there, watching her face close against possibility, against partnership, against the idea of choosing me over convenience, I felt the last piece of something break clean. She waited for me to say I'd stay, to say her home mattered more than my future, to provide like I'd always provided. Instead, I stood and cleared my own plate and said goodnight like it was any other evening. She stood in the kitchen, confused by the absence of my compliance, and I went to bed alone, in an apartment I'd paid for, next to a woman who'd never really chosen me at all. Friday afternoon, Jennifer called. "We'd like to extend an offer, 95 base, 15% bonus potential, Relocation assistance up to $8,000. Start date April 1st. You in? I stood in the office bathroom, phone pressed to my ear, listening to my life split into before and after. I'm in, I said. She laughed, warm and genuine. Good. HR will send the paperwork Monday. Welcome to the team, Marcus. She said my name. Not Champ, not Hey. Marcus, like I was a person who mattered. I returned to my desk. Kevin was eating almonds from an expensive bag, scrolling through Instagram. Richard stood by the window, talking on his phone about golf handicaps. My computer screen showed the analysis I'd been working on, hours of work they'd assigned to someone else, credit they'd give to Kevin. I opened a new email. Subject: Resignation letter, Marcus Thompson. Body: Effective 2 weeks from today, I resign from my position. Thank you for the opportunity. I hit send before I could soften it, before I could apologize for leaving, before I could make my departure easier for people who'd never made my presence comfortable. Richard's computer chimed. I watched him read it, his expression shifting from confusion to annoyance. He looked across the office at me. I looked back, steady, calm. He walked over, email printed in his hand like evidence of betrayal. What's this about? He asked. I kept my voice level. I got an offer I can't refuse. Better opportunity, better fit. He frowned. We've invested in you. 4 years, training, experience. I almost laughed. Training was watching Kevin do my work wrong. Experience was being passed over for promotions I'd earned. I appreciate the time here, I said, the lie smooth as glass, but I need to do what's best for my career. Richard's jaw tightened. Who's the offer from? I told him. His face changed, respect and resentment mixing into something that looked like understanding. Goldman Sachs wasn't a place you said no to. It was a place that made his firm look small, that made his authority seem local and limited. Well, he said finally. Good luck, champ. He walked away, and I felt nothing. No guilt, no satisfaction. Just the clean emptiness of a decision made and executed. I worked the rest of the day in a strange peace. At 6, I left the office and took the subway home. Sarah's car was in the lot, her parents' old BMW they'd given her when they upgraded. I climbed the stairs to our apartment, key turning in the lock I'd paid to rekey when we moved in. She sat on the couch, laptop open, wine glass half empty. Hey, she said, not looking up. How was work? I sat down across from her. I got the job. I start April 1st. She closed her laptop slowly. What job? I watched her face, looking for concern, for fear of losing me, for any sign that my presence mattered beyond function. The New York job I mentioned. Goldman Sachs. I accepted today. The silence stretched thin. She set down her wine glass carefully like it might shatter. You accepted. Without discussing it. I leaned forward. What would we discuss? You said you can't leave. I can't stay. That doesn't leave much middle ground. So you're just deciding for both of us. Her voice rose, anger replacing confusion. 3 years, Marcus. 3 years, and you're just leaving. I felt something cold settle in my chest. I'm leaving a job that doesn't value me. I'm taking an opportunity that does. You're welcome to come. She stood, pacing now. Come? To New York? Leave my program, my family, everything, just because you got some job offer? Some job offer, like it was whim. Like $95,000 in actual respect was just impulse. You could finish your program anywhere, I said quietly. New York has galleries, museums, opportunities. She shook her head. It's not the same. My connections are here. My mom's network. I can't just start over. Her mom's network, not hers. Borrowed connections, borrowed life, borrowed identity. I stood too, tired of sitting, tired of being still. Then don't. Stay. Finish your program. Be with your family. I paused. But I'm going. Her eyes filled with tears. Real or performed, I couldn't tell anymore. So this is it. You're breaking up with me? I thought about the ring money still sitting in savings, about dinners paid and debts accumulated, about being called the +1, About 3 years of shrinking myself to fit spaces that were never meant for me. I'm making a choice, I said. Maybe the first real one I've made in a long time. You can make one, too. She grabbed her keys, her phone, her coat. I'm going to my mom's. She waited, maybe hoping I'd stop her, ask her to stay, apologize for choosing myself. I didn't. She left, door closing hard enough to rattle the frame. I sat in the silence, in the apartment that was mine again, feeling the weight of 3 years lift like weather clearing. My phone buzzed. My mother. Proud of you, baby. Always knew you were meant for more. I'd called her after accepting the offer, heard her voice break with joy, with relief, with the satisfaction of seeing investment return. I walked to the bedroom and opened the closet. My clothes hung on one side, Sarah's on the other, her dresses and shoes and borrowed life taking up more space than mine. I started packing, slowly, methodically, clothes into boxes, books from the shelf, photos where I appeared alone. I left everything we'd bought together, every piece of furniture I'd paid for but she'd chosen. Let her have it. Let her have the apartment, the lease, the life we'd built. I was taking only what was mine. And as I packed, I felt lighter than I had in months, unburdened by the weight of being someone's acceptable choice, someone's stable option, someone's +1. The boxes filled slowly. Outside, Philadelphia continued its Friday night, people meeting and laughing and making plans. I worked in silence, dismantling 3 years in a few hours, surprised by how little I actually wanted to keep. And when I was done, when my whole life fit into 6 boxes and 2 suitcases, I sat on the edge of the bed and let myself feel it. Not sadness exactly, not regret, just the clean, cold relief of waking up from a dream that had stopped serving me long ago. Saturday morning, I called my mother. Can I stay with you for 2 weeks, until the apartment in New York is ready? Her voice carried no hesitation. Your room's waiting, baby. It's always been waiting. I rented a U-Haul, loaded my boxes, drove 9 hours to Detroit through gray March weather. The house where I grew up looked smaller than memory, but warmer. My mother stood in the doorway, 63 years old and beautiful, wearing the strength that had raised me alone. She helped me unload. We didn't talk about Sarah, about failure, about coming home. We talked about her garden plans, about the neighbors, about small things that mattered because they were real. My childhood room held the same bed, same posters, same desk where I'd studied for the SATs. I unpacked slowly, putting 29 years into a space designed for 17. It fit better than I expected. That night we ate her cooking, greens and cornbread and chicken that tasted like forgiveness, and I told her everything. She listened the way she always listened, without judgment, without interruption. When I finished, she set down her fork and looked at me with eyes that had seen harder things than heartbreak. You did right, she said. Love isn't supposed to make you smaller. It's supposed to help you grow. She reached across the table, took my hand. I worked 30 years so you could have choices. Don't waste them being comfortable for people who don't choose you back. Sunday, I slept until noon. Monday, I woke early and went running through the neighborhood, past houses I'd known forever, people who remembered me as a kid. The cold air burned my lungs clean. I ran until my legs hurt, until my mind cleared, until I felt strong again. Back home, I showered and opened my laptop. Email from HR with offer documents, relocation information, start date confirmation. I signed everything, sent it back, made it official. No turning back now, no safety net. Just forward. Sarah called Tuesday. I let it go to voicemail. She called again Wednesday. Same. Thursday, she texted. We need to talk about the apartment, about our stuff. Our stuff? Everything was hers or mine, nothing truly ours. I texted back, lease is in my name. I'll have it transferred to you, or you can find a new place. Your choice. My furniture stays. I don't want it. Short, clean, final. She replied, That's it? That's all you have to say? I wrote back, That's all that needs saying. Friday, I drove to Philadelphia. The apartment looked different, smaller, like a place I'd visited once but never lived. Sarah was there, surrounded by her mother and her brother, boxes already packed with her things. Her mother saw me first, her expression shifting from surprise to something harder. "Marcus, we didn't expect you." I set my keys on the counter. "Just need to handle the lease transfer and pick up some documents." Sarah's brother stood with his arms crossed, protective and useless. Sarah approached, her eyes red. "Can we talk? Alone?" I looked at her mother, at her brother, at the family who'd never included me standing guard in an apartment I'd paid for. "We can talk here," I said. She flinched. "I don't understand why you're being like this. Cold. Distant." I almost laughed. Cold. Distant. Words that described every family dinner, every introduction, every moment I'd been made to feel like help. "I'm being clear," I said. "There's a difference." Her mother stepped forward. "Sarah told us about your job offer. Very impressive. But to just abandon her like this?" I cut her off, voice level, calm. "I didn't abandon anyone. I took a job. Sarah chose to stay. Those are both valid choices. They just don't lead to the same place." Her mother's face flushed. "After everything she's done for you. Everything they'd done for me. Dinners I paid for. Events I attended alone. Being the +1. The provider. The acceptable boyfriend who stayed acceptable by staying silent. I appreciate Sarah's time," I said, each word measured. "But I don't owe anyone my future for the privilege of being tolerated in their present." Sarah made a sound, something between a gasp and a sob. Her brother moved forward. "You don't talk to my mother like that." I looked at him, at his expensive watch and inherited confidence. "I'm talking to everyone exactly how they've talked to me. Honest, direct, clear." I turned to Sarah. "The landlord has the transfer papers. Sign them or don't. Either way, I'm out of the lease April 1st. I grabbed the folders I'd come for. Tax documents, insurance papers, proof of every payment I'd made. Sarah followed me to the door. "Marcus, please, can't we try? Long distance? Something?" I stopped, turned, looked at her, really looked at the woman I'd spent 3 years loving, or trying to love, or pretending to love. "You never chose me, Sarah. You chose convenient. You chose acceptable. You chose someone who'd fit in the space your family made and not ask for more. I'm done fitting." Her face crumpled. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no pain, just the clean truth of it. I left them there, in the apartment that had never been ours, in the life that had never fit. The drive back to Detroit took 9 hours. I listened to music I'd forgotten I liked, music Sarah had said was too old, too black, too much like trying to prove something. I listened loud, windows down despite the cold, feeling something like joy mixing with something like grief. My phone buzzed. Sarah, her mother, her brother, messages I didn't read. I drove through the sunset, through Pennsylvania, into Ohio, into Michigan, toward my mother's house and the room that had waited. She met me at the door with tea and silence. We sat at the kitchen table, and she didn't ask questions because she'd raised me to know when talking helped and when it didn't. Instead, she told me about her day, about Mrs. Patterson's garden and Mr. William's new dog and the small, beautiful, mundane life that continued regardless of heartbreak. And I listened, grateful for the reminder that my story was one of many, that pain was temporary, that morning always came. The next week passed in preparation. I bought clothes for New York, simple, professional, mine. No consultations, no opinions, just what felt right. I called Brandon, finalized apartment details. A studio in Brooklyn, $1,500 a month, twice what I'd paid in Philadelphia but mine alone. No ghosts, no expectations. I wired the deposit from the Ring Fund, watched $6,200 become $4,700, felt no regret. That money had been meant for a future that didn't exist. Now it was buying one that did. My mother and I fell into routines. Morning coffee, evening dinners, conversations that mattered. She told me stories I'd never heard, about my father leaving, about choices she'd made, about loving someone who couldn't love her back. "I stayed 2 years too long," she said one night, washing dishes while I dried. "Kept thinking if I was better, kinder, smaller, he'd see me. But people see what they want to see. You can't make yourself visible to someone who needs you invisible." Her words settled in my chest like truth I'd known but never named. Thursday, Sarah texted. "I signed the lease transfer. My mom's helping with rent. No apology, no acknowledgement, just information, transactional to the end." I blocked her number, her mother's, her brother's. Clean cuts healed fastest. Friday, I got an email from Richard. Subject, reference request, Kevin Morrison. Kevin was applying somewhere, needed references, listed me because we'd worked together. I wrote back, "I don't feel comfortable providing a reference. Best of luck." Short, professional, honest. Let him find someone else to validate mediocrity. Saturday, I packed for New York. 1 suitcase of clothes, 1 box of books, my laptop. Everything I owned, everything that mattered, fit in the trunk of my car. My mother watched from the porch, her face showing pride and sadness mixing like weather. "You call me when you get there," she said, "and you remember, you're not running from something, you're running toward it. There's a difference." I hugged her, feeling her strength transfer to me, the way it always had. The drive took 9 hours. I arrived Sunday evening, the city glowing like a promise. The Brooklyn apartment was small, 6th floor, windows facing east toward sunrise. I unpacked slowly, putting my life in order, clothes in the closet, books on the shelf, laptop on the desk. No decorations yet, no art, nothing borrowed or chosen by committee, just space, clean and mine, waiting to be filled with whatever I decided it should hold. Monday morning, I woke at 5:30. The city was already moving, already humming with purpose. I showered, dressed in my new suit, took the subway to Manhattan. Goldman Sachs rose above the financial district like a monument to ambition. I entered through glass doors, showed my ID, took the elevator to 42. Jennifer met me in reception, smiled like she'd expected me all along. "Ready to get started?" she asked. I nodded. "I've been ready," I said. She walked me through the floor, introducing me to the team. 12 people, diverse and sharp, each one there because they'd earned it. No sons of golf partners, no daughters of donors, just talent validated by results. My desk faced windows overlooking the harbor, ships moving in patterns that suggested order and purpose. Jennifer handed me a folder, 3 accounts to analyze, real work with real consequences. "Show me what you can do," she said. "No hand-holding, no training wheels, just competence." I opened the first file and felt something I hadn't felt in years, the clean excitement of being trusted with work that mattered. The morning passed in focused analysis, data revealing patterns, risks becoming visible. At noon, the team went to lunch together, a taco place 2 blocks away where everyone paid for themselves. We talked about work, about the city, about nothing that required performance. I ate my food and listened and spoke when I had something to say. Nobody asked me to be smaller. Nobody made me feel like an accessory. The afternoon brought my first meeting. A client call, pharmaceutical company considering a merger, needed risk assessment. I sat in the conference room with Jennifer and 2 senior analysts listening as they outlined the situation. Then Jennifer turned to me. "Marcus, you reviewed the preliminary data. What do you see?" I felt eyes on me, waiting, evaluating. I thought about Richard calling Kevin champ while I stayed invisible. I thought about Sarah's mother saying I was just the +1. Then I stopped thinking about them and started talking about the data. I spoke for 7 minutes, outlining supply chain vulnerabilities, regulatory risks, competitive positioning. The room stayed quiet. When I finished, Jennifer nodded. "That's exactly what I needed to hear. Send me your full analysis by Thursday." The call ended. The senior analysts looked at me differently. Not friendly exactly, but respectful. I'd proven something, earned something, by doing nothing except the work I'd always been capable of. Walking back to my desk, I felt the weight of 4 years at Richard's firm fall away like dead skin. The first month in New York moved fast. Work consumed my days. Good work, challenging work, the kind that left me tired but satisfied. I analyzed portfolios, assessed risks, presented findings to people who listened and asked hard questions. Jennifer pushed me, never accepting surface answers, always demanding I go deeper. "You're smart," she said after one presentation. "But smart is common here. I need you to be thorough. I need you to see what others miss." So I did. I worked late, came in early, learned the difference between doing enough and doing excellent. The team accepted me gradually. After-work drinks on Fridays, casual lunches, conversations that included me without effort. Brandon had been right. These people thought different, operated different. They cared about results, not performance, about substance, not style. I made friends slowly. Daniel, a senior analyst from Chicago who ran marathons, and Amy, a junior like me from Houston, who'd left a banking family to build her own name. We bonded over being underestimated, over proving ourselves daily, over choosing growth over comfort. My apartment stayed sparse. I bought a better mattress, a coffee maker, a desk lamp that didn't hurt my eyes. No art yet, no decorations. Sarah used to say my taste was too minimal, too masculine, too unwelcoming. Now I understood. She'd meant too much like me, not enough like her. The space felt clean, uncluttered by expectations. I could breathe here. I could think. I could be exactly who I was without translation or apology. April became May. My first bonus check arrived. $4,000, more money at once than I'd ever received. I sent half to my mother. "For the house repairs you mentioned," I wrote, "and because you earned this more than I did." She called crying, telling me to keep it, that she was fine. I told her I was fine too, finally, and that letting me help her felt like healing something. She accepted, the way she'd taught me to accept, gracefully, knowing when to hold on and when to let go. Sarah's Instagram showed her at gallery openings, art events, her mother always beside her. She'd started dating someone new, a guy named Preston whose family owned real estate in Rittenhouse. The photos looked practiced, perfect, performed for an audience that would validate her choices. I felt nothing looking at them. No jealousy, no regret. Just the distant curiosity of observing a life I'd escaped, a role I'd been released from. I stopped checking after that. Some doors, once closed, didn't need revisiting. Work intensified in June. A major account, biotech company considering acquisition, needed deep analysis. Jennifer assigned me as lead, my first solo project with real stakes. I spent 3 weeks living in spreadsheets, financial reports, FDA filings. The company looked solid on surface, but digging deeper revealed patent vulnerabilities, upcoming drug expirations, competitive threats they'd minimized in their presentations. I compiled everything into a 60-page report, thorough and unsparing, showing exactly why the acquisition was overpriced and risky. The presentation was scheduled for a Thursday. The client, a hedge fund managing $8 billion in assets, sent their senior team. I stood at the front of the conference room looking at men 20 years older and women with MBAs from schools I'd only heard of, and I felt no fear. I'd done the work. I knew what I knew. I presented for 45 minutes, fielding questions with facts, defending my analysis with data. When I finished, the room stayed silent for 3 long seconds. Then the fund manager leaned forward. "That's the most thorough risk assessment we've seen on this target. How confident are you in these findings?" I met his eyes. "Completely. The data doesn't lie. The acquisition is a trap dressed up as opportunity." He smiled, the kind of smile that suggested he'd been testing me. "Good. We're passing on the deal. You just saved us $300 million. The meeting ended. Jennifer walked me back to my desk, her hand on my shoulder. "That," she said, "is what I hired you for. Keep doing exactly that." The fund manager sent a formal thank you that afternoon, copying the managing director. My name was mentioned. My work was cited. I was visible. That night, Daniel and Amy took me out to celebrate. We went to a steakhouse in Midtown, the kind of place I'd have never entered in Philadelphia without calculating the cost. But my salary could handle it now. My work had earned it. We ordered drinks and food and talked about careers and ambitions and the strange fortune of finding places that wanted what we had to give. "You know what's wild?" Amy said, wine making her philosophical. "A year ago, I was working at my family's bank, miserable, being told I should be grateful. Now I'm here, doing real work, and I've never been happier." I raised my glass. "To leaving places that needed us invisible," I said. We drank to that. And walking home later, through Manhattan streets alive with Friday energy, I thought about Sarah's mother calling me the +1, about Richard never learning my name, about all the people who'd seen me as background, as support, as someone whose value was measured by how well I stayed out of the way. They'd been wrong. Not about who I was then. Maybe I had been small, accommodating, afraid to take space, but about who I could become, about what happened when someone finally saw me and said not fit in, but grow. That changed everything, and I was just getting started. Summer in New York felt like possibility. The city opened up, rooftop bars and street festivals and parks full of people living visible lives. I started running in Prospect Park, early mornings before work, watching the borough wake up around me. My body changed, stronger, leaner, matching the internal shift. I felt present in ways I'd forgotten were possible, inhabiting my life instead of observing it from the margins. Jennifer promoted me in July. Senior analyst, 20,000 raise, direct reports. "You've earned this 3 times over," she said in her office, door closed, voice matter of fact. "Now I need you to mentor the juniors the way I've mentored you. Show them what thorough looks like, what honest looks like. We're building something here, and you're part of the foundation." I thought about Kevin getting promoted for existing. This felt different. Deserved, based on evidence I'd created with my own competence. My team consisted of 2 junior analysts, Maria from Stanford and James from Howard. Both smart, both hungry, both used to being underestimated. I taught them what Jennifer had taught me. Go deeper, question assumptions, never accept surface answers. We worked late together, ordered dinner to the office, talked through problems until solutions emerged. They respected me because I respected them, because I saw their work and named it, because I made them better by expecting better. This was what leadership felt like. Not authority, service. August brought a surprise, an email from Richard, my old boss. Subject, reaching out. I almost deleted it. Curiosity made me open it instead. "Marcus, hope New York is treating you well. I wanted to apologize for not recognizing your value while you were here. The Hoffman account closed successfully based on your analysis. Kevin struggled to explain your work to the client. Made me realize what we lost when you left. If you're ever looking for a change, we'd welcome you back at senior level. Better title, better compensation." I read it twice looking for the insult, the backhanded compliment, the diminishment. It wasn't there. Just regret, honest and uncomfortable. I wrote back, "Richard, I appreciate the message. I'm exactly where I need to be, doing work that challenges me with people who value me. I hope Kevin learns what he needs to learn. Best of luck with the firm." I hit send and felt nothing. No vindication, no anger. He was part of a past I'd outgrown, a version of myself I'd shed like old clothing. His apology changed nothing because I no longer needed it. I'd already moved on. September arrived with cooler air and new projects, a pharmaceutical merger, a tech acquisition, a healthcare company going public. My days filled with the kind of work that mattered. High stakes, real consequences, decisions that affected thousands of people and billions of dollars. I thrived in the pressure, in the clarity of problems that had answers if you were willing to dig deep enough. Jennifer trusted me with increasingly complex analyses. Clients specifically requested me for presentations. I was building a reputation, not as someone's boyfriend, not as someone's junior, as myself. My mother came to visit that month. I showed her the office, introduced her to Jennifer and Brandon and my team. She wore her good dress, the one from church, her pride visible and pure. "This is my son," she told everyone, her voice carrying the satisfaction of seeing investment return. After the office tour, we walked through Manhattan, past buildings that touched clouds, through parks where strangers sat close without fear. "You seem different," she said, linking her arm through mine. "Taller somehow, like you're taking up the space you were always meant to occupy." We had dinner at a restaurant I chose. Italian food in the West Village, wine I ordered without checking prices. I paid with my own card, my own money, earned by my own work. She looked at the receipt when it came and smiled. "You remember when you were 7, and I told you education was the ladder out?" I nodded. "I was wrong," she said. "Education was just the first rung. You built the rest yourself. Choosing yourself, choosing growth, that's what got you here. I'm so proud of the man you became when you stopped trying to be what everyone else needed." We walked back to my apartment through September twilight. She stayed 3 days, sleeping on my couch, cooking breakfast while I got ready for work. Having her there felt like blessing, like the space I'd built was finally complete enough to share. On her last night, we sat by my window looking at the city lights. "You're going to meet someone," she said suddenly. "Someone who chooses you first, who sees you clear and wants exactly what they see. Don't settle for less. Not ever again." I promised I wouldn't. And watching her taxi pull away the next morning, I felt grateful for the bloodline that had taught me resilience, that had shown me love wasn't supposed to diminish you. It was supposed to help you grow. October came with purpose. I was interviewing candidates for a new junior position, sitting on the other side of the table for the first time. The third candidate was a young woman from Philadelphia, Temple University grad, smart resume but nervous hands. During the interview, she mentioned working at a regional firm, dealing with being overlooked, fighting to prove herself. I saw myself in her struggle, in her hunger, in the way she needed this chance but couldn't say it. After she left, Jennifer asked my opinion. "Hire her," I said. "She'll work harder than anyone because she knows what it's like to be invisible. Those are the ones who change everything when someone finally sees them." Jennifer smiled. "Speaking from experience?" I nodded. "Always." We hired her. Her name was Nicole. On her first day, I took her to lunch, told her the same thing Jennifer had told me. "You're here because you're good enough. Now show everyone exactly how good. Don't make yourself smaller to fit. Make the work bigger to match what you're capable of." She looked at me like I'd handed her permission she'd been waiting for. Maybe I had. Maybe that's what mentorship was, passing forward the gift of being believed in. That night, walking home through autumn cold, I thought about the year, about Sarah and Richard and Philadelphia, about being the +1, about signing receipts for celebrations that weren't mine, about shrinking myself to fit spaces designed to keep me small. That version of Marcus felt distant now, like someone I'd known briefly but never understood. This version, the one who took space, who demanded value, who refused to be background, felt true, felt earned, felt like the person my mother had raised me to be before I'd forgotten in the work of being acceptable. My phone buzzed. "Brandon. Drinks Friday. Bringing someone I want you to meet. She's a lawyer, brilliant, thinks you two would hit it off." I smiled. A year ago, I'd have panicked, felt pressure, worried about being enough. Now, I just felt curious, open, ready to meet someone as an equal, as myself, without translation or apology. I texted back, "I'm in." And I meant it. Not just for Friday, for whatever came next, for the life I'd built by choosing myself when everyone else had asked me to choose their comfort instead. Friday evening, I met Brandon at a wine bar in Brooklyn. The place was warm, intimate, filled with people who looked comfortable in their own skin. He waved from a corner table where a woman sat beside him, black like me, professional but relaxed, reading something on her phone. She looked up when I approached, and her smile reached her eyes. "Marcus, this is Diane," Brandon said. "Diane. Marcus. My Penn State brother who finally remembered he was brilliant. We shook hands. Her grip was firm, confident. "Brandon talks about you constantly," she said. "Corporate lawyer who does pro bono work with small businesses based in Harlem, grew up in Atlanta, runs half marathons badly." Brandon laughed. "I said you run them enthusiastically." Diane rolled her eyes. "Same thing." We sat, ordered drinks, fell into conversation that felt natural. She asked about my work. I asked about hers. No performance, no testing, just two people talking like talking mattered. An hour passed like minutes. Brandon excused himself to take a call, leaving us alone. Diane leaned back, studying me. "Can I ask you something direct?" I nodded. "Brandon said you left someone in Philadelphia. Walked away from a relationship to take this job. That true?" I sipped my wine, considering the question. I left a job that didn't value me and a relationship that didn't choose me. Same decision, different rooms. She smiled. "That's a good answer. Honest." We talked until closing, about choices and ambition and the cost of staying small for people who needed you manageable. Outside, autumn air cut through the warmth. Diane pulled her coat tight. "I'd like to do this again," she said, "if you're interested." I was. We exchanged numbers, real intention behind the gesture. She caught a cab uptown. I walked home, thinking about the difference between forced connection and natural fit. With Sarah, everything had required effort, translation, accommodation, shrinking. With Diane, conversation had been easy, honest. Two people meeting as equals, no plus ones, no roles, just themselves. We texted through the weekend. Monday, she sent, "Coffee Wednesday?" We met at a place in Midtown between our offices. She wore a burgundy suit that looked expensive and earned. We talked about work, about her cases, helping immigrant-owned businesses navigate contracts, protecting people from legal systems designed to confuse them. Her passion was visible, unperformed. "My parents owned a dry cleaning business in Atlanta," she said. "Spent their whole lives being taken advantage of by landlords and suppliers because they didn't understand the contracts they were signing. I became a lawyer so people like them would have someone on their side." I told her about my mother, about cleaning houses, about the ring money that became apartment money, about being the plus one. She listened without interrupting, her eyes never leaving mine. When I finished, she reached across the table and touched my hand. "You know what I think? I think you were always enough. You just needed to be around people who recognized it." Her words settled in my chest like truth. We finished our coffee and walked back to work together, talking easily, naturally, like we'd known each other longer than days. October became November. We saw each other twice a week, then 3 times, then whenever schedules allowed. Museums on Sunday afternoons, dinner after work, long walks through neighborhoods we'd never explored. She met my team at a happy hour. They loved her, Amy especially, pulling me aside to say, "She's brilliant and she looks at you like you matter. Don't mess this up." I introduced her to my mother over FaceTime. They talked for an hour about Atlanta and Detroit, about raising children alone, about strength as inheritance. After, my mother texted, "That one chooses you, I can tell." Thanksgiving, Diane invited me to Atlanta to meet her family. I bought a plane ticket, took 3 days off, flew south into warmth and welcome. Her parents' home smelled like cooking and care. Her father, a quiet man with her eyes, shook my hand firmly. Her mother, warm and quick, hugged me like I was already family. "Diane told us about you," she said, "about your work, your mother, your integrity. We're glad you're here." They asked about my life with genuine interest, listened to my answers like they mattered, included me in conversations without effort. Dinner was loud and full, siblings and cousins and laughter that felt earned. Nobody asked me to be smaller. Nobody made me feel like an accessory. I was just Marcus, Diane's boyfriend, a person in my own right who brought something to the table beyond function. After dinner, her father pulled me aside. "My daughter doesn't bring people home lightly," he said. "She's particular about who she lets close. You must be someone worth knowing." I didn't know what to say. He smiled. "Just be good to her. That's all a father asks. The flight back to New York, Diane slept against my shoulder. I stayed awake, thinking about the difference between her family and Sarah's. Both had money, education, status. But one had used it to include, the other to exclude. One had made space, the other had enforced margins. I thought about the word provider, about being the plus one, about dinners where I'd signed receipts for celebrations that weren't mine. That life felt like someone else's story now, something that had happened to a different version of me in a different lifetime. December arrived cold and clear. Work intensified with year-end closings, final analyses, presentations that determined next year's accounts. I worked late most nights, arriving home after midnight, exhausted but satisfied. Diane understood, never complained, sent food to my office and texts that made me smile. "Proud of you," she wrote one night at 2 a.m. "Now go to sleep. The work will still be there tomorrow." She was right. It would. But so would I. And that made all the difference. Christmas week, the office slowed to near silence. Most people took vacation, visiting family or escaping winter. I stayed, using the quiet to finish projects to prepare analyses for January. Jennifer stopped by my desk Thursday afternoon. "Go home, Marcus. Spend time with people who matter. The work will keep." I told her I was fine, that I preferred working. She sat on the edge of my desk, her expression shifting to something more personal. "Can I tell you something?" I nodded. 10 years ago, I was you. Brilliant analyst, worked constantly, avoided life because work felt safer. Then I missed my father's last Christmas because I was finishing a presentation that didn't matter. He died in January. I never forgave myself. She paused, her voice quiet. "Don't make my mistake. The work will always be here. The people won't." She left me sitting there, her words echoing in the empty office. I looked at my screen, at the spreadsheets and reports, at the evidence of my competence. Then I closed my laptop and went home. I called my mother. "Can I come home for Christmas?" Her joy came through the phone like light. "Your room is ready, baby. It's always ready." I booked a flight for the next morning, packed quickly, texted Diane. She called immediately. "Go," she said. "Be with your mom. I'm doing the same with mine. We'll see each other New Year's." Her understanding felt like gift. With Sarah, every choice had been negotiation. With Diane, support came naturally, two people wanting each other's good without keeping score. Detroit was cold and white, snow covering the houses like blessing. My mother met me at the door wearing the sweater I'd sent her, blue like her favorite hymn. We spent 3 days in comfortable routine, cooking together, watching old movies, talking about everything and nothing. Christmas morning, I gave her an envelope. Inside, a check for $10,000. "For retirement," I said, "or vacation, or whatever brings you joy. You've given me everything. Let me give you something back." She cried, holding the check like it might disappear. "Marcus, this is too much." I shook my head. "It's not enough. It'll never be enough. But it's a start." She hugged me, and I felt the transfer of something. Not debt repaid, but love acknowledged, sacrifice honored, inheritance accepted, and passed forward. That night, sitting in the living room where she'd raised me alone, she told me about my father. Things she'd never said before, how he'd left when she was pregnant, how she'd been terrified, how she'd decided to choose me over fear. "I could have been bitter," she said, "could have made you carry my disappointment. But I decided early. You would know love without conditions, support without debt, belief without limit. That was my job, to show you what it looked like to be chosen fully." She paused, looking at me with eyes that had seen everything. "Now you know the difference. Between someone who chooses you and someone who tolerates you. Never forget it." I promised I wouldn't. And sitting there, in the house where unconditional love had been modeled daily, I understood that my mother had given me the blueprint all along. I just needed to remember how to read it. The flight back to New York came too soon. My mother packed me food, hugged me hard at the airport. "Be good to yourself," she said, "and to that girl." She's special. I flew back through winter clouds thinking about the year, about leaving Philadelphia, about choosing myself, about finding work that valued me and a woman who chose me without conditions. The plane descended through darkness into city lights, and I felt something close to gratitude. Not for what had happened, for what I'd done with what happened. Diane picked me up from the airport, standing in arrivals with a smile that felt like home. We drove to her place in Harlem, a brownstone apartment filled with books and art and evidence of a life fully inhabited. She made tea while I unpacked, and we sat on her couch talking about our families, about Christmas memories, about the strange alchemy of becoming adults our parents could be proud of. "My mom asked about you," she said. "Asked if you were serious, if this was real." I looked at her, at the question behind the question. "What did you tell her?" "I told her yes," she said simply, "that you're the most real thing I've found in a long time." I set down my tea and kissed her, slow and certain, feeling the difference between performance and presence. We stayed up late talking, then later not talking, just being together in the comfortable silence of two people who didn't need words to communicate worth. I woke the next morning to snow falling outside her window, her head on my chest, feeling peace I hadn't known was possible. New Year's Eve, we stayed in, cooked dinner together, opened wine, watched the ball drop on TV while the city celebrated outside. At midnight, she turned to me. "Last year at this time, where were you?" I thought back. Philadelphia, Sarah's family party, being introduced as the +1, watching people who'd never see me celebrate a year I'd barely survived. "Somewhere I don't need to remember," I said. "What about you?" She smiled. "Alone. By choice. Waiting for something worth not being alone for." She kissed me. "Found it." We talked until 3 a.m. about futures and plans and the scary, beautiful possibility of building something together. She asked about my dreams, not what I did, but what I wanted. I told her about eventually starting my own firm, about helping companies avoid bad decisions, about teaching what I'd learned. She told me about partnership track at her firm, about pro bono expansion, about changing systems from inside them. Our ambitions didn't conflict. They aligned, two people growing in parallel, supporting without diminishing. January arrived with purpose. Back at work, Jennifer called me into her office. "The managing director wants to meet you. You're being considered for VP track." My heart stopped. VP at 32, at a firm where most people waited until 40. "Your work speaks for itself," she continued. "The fund managers specifically request you. Clients trust your analyses. You've built something here, Marcus. Now we want to build on it." The meeting was scheduled for the following week. I prepared like my life depended on it, because in some ways it did. The managing director, Robert, was 63 and legendary. He'd built Goldman's risk assessment division, mentored hundreds, could smell incompetence from floors away. I entered his office expecting interrogation. Instead, he asked me one question. "Why should I trust you with more responsibility?" I thought about every person who'd never asked that question, who'd assumed I should be grateful for scraps. I met his eyes. "Because I've never given you reason not to. I do thorough work, I see what others miss, and I make the firm better by being here. If you want someone who'll maintain, hire someone else. If you want someone who'll build, I'm your answer." He smiled. "That's exactly what I needed to hear. Welcome to the VP track, Marcus. Don't make me regret believing in you." I wouldn't. I couldn't. Not after everything it had taken to get here, to become someone worth believing in. Walking out of his office, I thought about Richard calling me champ while never learning my name. About Sarah's mother calling me the +1. About every person who'd made me feel like background, like support, like someone whose value was measured by how well they stayed invisible. They'd been teaching me something without knowing it, how to recognize my own worth when nobody else would name it. February brought new responsibilities. My own office, small but mine, windows facing the harbor. A team of 4 analysts reporting to me. Real authority matched with real accountability. I dove into the work with focus Jennifer had taught me. Thorough, unsparing, honest. My first project as VP was a healthcare merger. $12 billion, hundreds of jobs dependent on the outcome. I spent 3 weeks analyzing every aspect, finding structural problems the client's own team had missed. My presentation killed the deal. The client was furious. Robert was impressed. Good work costs companies money sometimes, he told me after. But it saves them catastrophe. You just prevented a disaster. They'll hate you now. Thank you later. He was right. 6 months later, the company we'd advised against buying collapsed under regulatory pressure, exactly as my analysis had predicted. The client sent a formal thank you. My reputation grew. Firms started requesting me specifically, paying premium rates for analyses they trusted. I was becoming known for something other than being someone's boyfriend, someone's junior, someone's +1. Diane and I fell into rhythm. Dinners together when schedules allowed, weekends exploring the city, quiet nights reading side by side. She made partner at her firm in March, youngest in their history. We celebrated at the same wine bar where we'd met, toasting to arrivals and achievements and the strange fortune of finding each other. "My mom wants you to come to Easter," she said. "No pressure, but she's already planning the menu." I laughed. "Tell her I'll be there." Being wanted in her family felt natural. Earned, right. Not because I paid for things, because they valued who I was. Spring brought unexpected contact. An email from Sarah's brother, Andrew. Subject, apology. I almost deleted it. Curiosity opened it instead. "Marcus, I've been thinking about how we treated you. How I treated you. It wasn't right. You were good to my sister, respectful to our family, and we made you feel like you weren't enough. I'm sorry. Truly. I hope New York is treating you well. You deserved better than what we gave you." I read it twice, looking for the angle, the request, the manipulation. Found none. Just regret. Honest and late. I wrote back brief and clean. "Andrew, I appreciate the apology. No hard feelings. I'm exactly where I need to be. Best to you and your family." I hit send and felt nothing shift. The apology didn't change the past. It didn't heal wounds that had already scarred over, but it confirmed something, that my absence had made visible what my presence had provided, that sometimes people only recognize value after it's withdrawn. I didn't need their recognition anymore. I'd found my own. April marked 1 year since I'd started at Goldman. Jennifer took me to lunch, the kind of expensive place where deals got made and careers got shaped. "You've exceeded every expectation," she said. "Your analyses are the standard I show new hires. Your mentorship has made the team stronger. You're exactly what I thought you'd be when Brandon first mentioned your name." She paused. "There's a new division being formed, Emerging Markets Risk Assessment. We want you to lead it. Full VP title, team of 8, significant raise. Interested?" My heart pounded. Leading a division at 32, building something from foundation, defining strategy and culture. Everything I'd wanted without knowing how to name it. "When do I start?" I asked. She smiled. "June 1st. That gives you time to wrap current projects and transition your team. Marcus, you've earned this. Not because someone liked you or knew your family, because you did exceptional work consistently. Remember that." I would. I'd never forget the difference again. I told Diane that night over dinner at her place. She screamed, jumped up, hugged me so hard I lost breath. "You're leading a division. Marcus, do you understand how incredible that is?" I did, and I didn't. Part of me still felt like the junior analyst Richard never named, the +1 signing receipts. But a growing part recognized what Jennifer saw, that I'd become someone worth betting on, someone who delivered value worth recognizing. Diane pulled back, her hands on my face. "I'm so proud of you, and I'm proud of me for seeing this coming." She kissed me. "We're celebrating properly this weekend." Saturday, she took me to a Michelin-starred restaurant in Manhattan, the kind of place Sarah would have chosen for Instagram photos. But Diane chose it because the chef was from Atlanta, because the food told stories, because celebration deserved intention. We ate courses that felt like art, drank wine I could finally afford without calculation, talked about futures that felt possible instead of theoretical. Midway through dinner, Diane set down her glass, her expression shifting to something serious. "I have news, too," she said. "The firm offered me head of pro bono services. New position, more money, full autonomy to build the program." I reached across the table, took her hand. "That's incredible. Everything you've worked for." She nodded, eyes bright. "We're both becoming who we're supposed to be. Together. How rare is that? Rare enough to matter. Rare enough to protect." We finished dinner and walked through the city holding hands. Two people who'd found each other by first finding themselves, who understood that partnership meant growing in parallel instead of one person shrinking for the other's comfort. May passed in transition. I wrapped projects, trained replacements, prepared for the new division. My team threw me a goodbye lunch, not goodbye exactly since I'd still be in the building, but acknowledgement of shift. Nicole, the junior I'd hired from Philadelphia, gave a speech that made me uncomfortable with its honesty. "Marcus taught me that being good enough means never stopping at good enough, that thorough beats fast, that respect is earned by doing work worth respecting. I wouldn't be here without him seeing me. I won't forget that." The team applauded. I felt the weight of inheritance. Jennifer had given me this gift of being seen. I'd passed it forward, and now it would continue beyond me. The last week of May, my mother called with news. "I'm retiring, baby. Giving notice next week. Going to travel, see things, live a little." Her voice carried joy I hadn't heard in years. "The money you've been sending helped, but more than that. Watching you choose yourself, build something real, become someone you're proud of, that gave me permission to do the same. I spent 30 years cleaning houses so you could have choices. Now, I'm choosing me." We talked for an hour about her plans, visiting cousins in Georgia, seeing the Grand Canyon, maybe taking a cruise. Dreams delayed, but not denied. I hung up feeling the full circle of it. My mother had worked so I could rise. My rising had freed her to rest. The money helped, but the example mattered more, showing her that sacrifice wasn't meant to be permanent, that she deserved joy she'd earned. That night I told Diane about the call. She cried happy tears. "Your mom is incredible. You're incredible. This whole thing is incredible." She paused. "Marcus, I'm falling in love with you. Fully, completely. No reservations." I pulled her close. "I'm already there," I said. "Have been for months." June first arrived bright and clear. My new office was corner, windows facing two directions, space that matched the responsibility. My team of 8 gathered for first meeting, diverse group from different backgrounds, each one hungry to prove themselves. I looked at their faces and saw versions of myself, people who'd been underestimated, overlooked, told to be grateful for margins. "I'm going to ask a lot of you," I said. "Thoroughness over speed, depth over surface, honesty even when it costs us deals. We're not here to make clients happy, we're here to make them successful. Questions?" A junior analyst raised her hand. "What if clients don't like our findings?" I smiled. "Then we did our job right. Clients pay us to see what they miss, not to confirm what they want to hear. If everyone loves our work, we're probably not being honest enough." They nodded, understanding, settling in the room. We spent 3 hours outlining division strategy, values, goals. By the end, I felt the foundation solidifying, not just of a team, but of something that could outlast me, something built on principles instead of personalities. The first month was intense. 3 major analyses, 2 international clients, 1 restructuring that required brutal honesty about company viability. My team worked hard, stayed late, learned fast. I mentored the way Jennifer had mentored me, demanding excellence while providing support, pushing growth while acknowledging struggle. By July, we'd earned reputation for thoroughness that scared some clients and attracted others. The ones who wanted truth found us. The ones who wanted validation went elsewhere. I was fine with that division. Diane and I moved in together in August. Her place in Harlem, the brownstone apartment that felt like home. I brought my sparse belongings and she made space without hesitation. "Our place now," she said, helping me unpack. We bought furniture together, art for the walls, books for the shared shelf, building a life that belonged to both of us equally, where decisions were made in partnership and space was shared without scorekeeping. Some mornings I woke up next to her and felt disbelief that this was real, that someone chose me fully, saw me clearly, wanted exactly what she saw. September brought unexpected news. Brandon called, voice excited. "Marcus, I need to tell you something before it's public. I'm leaving Goldman. Starting my own firm. Risk assessment and portfolio management, specialized in emerging markets." He paused. "I want you to come with me. As partner. Equal ownership, equal say. We'd build something from scratch, our way." The offer hung in the air like electricity. Partnership at 33, ownership stake, building instead of maintaining. Everything I'd dreamed about in private moments when ambition felt too large to name. I told him I needed time to think. Hung up and sat in my office, looking at the harbor, at ships moving toward destinations chosen by someone else. I'd built something good at Goldman, reputation, team, respect earned through work that mattered. Leaving meant starting over, risking stability for possibility. But staying meant climbing someone else's ladder, following paths already established. I thought about my mother cleaning houses so I could have choices. About Jennifer telling me the work would keep, but people wouldn't. About the difference between safe and right. I talked to Diane that night. She listened without interrupting, then asked one question. "What would you do if you weren't afraid?" I thought about it honestly. I'd go with Brandon. Build something mine. Take the risk. She nodded. "Then that's your answer. Fear is data, not direction. You didn't leave Philadelphia to play it safe in New York. You left to become who you're capable of being. This is part of that." Her certainty steadied me. I called Brandon the next morning. "I'm in. Let's build something worth building." Jennifer took the news with grace I should have expected. "I knew this was coming," she said. "Knew it from the first month. You're a builder, Marcus, not a maintainer. You were always going to outgrow this place." She paused, emotion flickering across her professional composure. "You've been one of my best decisions. Watching you grow, seeing you become someone juniors want to emulate, that's been the reward. Now go do what I did. Build something that outlasts you. And when you need advice, call me. Mentorship doesn't end with employment." My team reacted with mixed feelings, pride and abandonment mixing into something complicated. I spent my last month training my replacement, ensuring projects transitioned smoothly, writing recommendations for each team member that detailed their strengths and potential. Nicole asked to come with me to the new firm. "You taught me everything I know," she said. "I want to keep learning from you." I hired her as my first employee, feeling the weight and gift of someone choosing to bet their career on mine. October, Brandon and I signed papers. Thompson Chen Risk Advisory. Equal partners, small office in Midtown, 3 employees including Nicole. We'd secured 2 clients through reputation alone, companies willing to pay premium for analyses they trusted. The firm felt fragile and strong simultaneously, built on nothing except our competence and commitment to thoroughness. No safety net, no corporate structure, no cushion against failure. Just 2 men and 1 woman, betting on themselves because someone had once bet on them. The first 3 months were brutal. Long hours, constant hustle, pitching to clients who'd never heard of us. Some said yes. Most said no. We lived on savings and hope, working from dawn to midnight, building analyses so thorough they couldn't be dismissed. Slowly, reputation grew. A pharmaceutical company hired us after our analysis saved them from a disastrous merger. A tech firm retained us quarterly after we caught vulnerabilities their internal team missed. By January, we were profitable. By March, we were thriving. Diane supported through all of it. The stress, the uncertainty, the nights I came home exhausted and doubting. She never suggested I'd made the wrong choice, Never implied safe would have been smarter. Instead, she cooked dinners and asked good questions and reminded me why I'd started. "You're building something that matters," she said one night when I was ready to quit. "Something with your name on it, built on your values. That's worth the hard days." She was right. It always was with her. April marked 1 year since I'd accepted Jennifer's division offer, 2 years since I'd left Philadelphia. The firm was stable, growing, earning reputation for honesty that made us both valuable and inconvenient. We'd killed more deals than we'd approved, made more clients angry than happy, but the ones who wanted truth kept coming back. We hired 2 more analysts, moved to a bigger office, started planning international expansion. I was building exactly what I'd dreamed about without knowing how to name it. My mother came to visit the new office, toured the space with pride radiating from her like light. "This is yours," she said, touching my name on the door. "Built from nothing except what you're capable of. Your father would have been proud if he'd been man enough to stay, but I'm proud enough for both of us." She met Diane for the first time in person. 2 women who'd raised strong men alone, who understood sacrifice as investment in futures they wouldn't fully see. They bonded immediately, talking like old friends, comparing notes on stubborn sons and deferred dreams. That night, the 4 of us, me, Diane, my mother, Brandon, had dinner at a restaurant I chose without checking prices. We toasted to beginnings and endings, to choices that had led here, to people who'd believed in us when we'd forgotten to believe in ourselves. My mother looked at me across the table, her eyes bright. "You remember when you were 7, sitting at our kitchen table asking why we didn't have what other families had?" I nodded. "You told me someday you'd change that. Looks like someday arrived." Walking my mother to her hotel later, she pulled me aside. "That woman loves you right," she said. "Sees you clear and wants what she sees. Don't let her go." I promised I wouldn't. "You thinking about marrying her?" she asked, no subtlety, just direct maternal interest. I was, had been for months, had been saving for a ring, not the one I'd almost bought for Sarah, not a symbol of providing, but a promise of partnership. Equal, chosen, mutual. "Soon," I told my mother. "When the time is right." She smiled. "The time is always right for choosing love. Don't make her wait too long." May brought the moment. Diane and I planned a weekend upstate, cabin by a lake, space to breathe outside the city's intensity. I brought the ring, simple platinum band with a small diamond, elegant without being ostentatious, chosen because it matched her style, not her Pinterest board. Friday evening, we arrived at the cabin as sun painted the lake gold. We unpacked, cooked dinner together, sat on the dock watching water reflect dying light. Peace settled over us like blessing. Saturday morning, I woke before her and walked to the lake. Spring air smelled like possibility, like beginning instead of ending. I thought about the journey here. Philadelphia to Detroit to New York, Sarah to Solitude to Diane, being the +1 to building partnership. Every hard choice, every moment of choosing myself over comfort had led to this dock. This morning, this woman sleeping in the cabin behind me. I heard her footsteps on the wooden planks, turned to see her approaching with coffee, wearing my shirt, looking like every future I wanted. She handed me a cup, settled beside me, her head on my shoulder. We sat in silence, watching the lake wake up, birds starting their morning arguments. "Diane," I said finally, "I need to tell you something." She straightened, looking at me with slight concern. I took her hand. 2 years ago, I was the smallest version of myself, invisible to people who should have seen me, acceptable to people who should have chosen me, tolerated when I should have been valued. I didn't know how to take space, how to demand worth, how to choose myself. She listened, her eyes never leaving mine. Then I left, started over, found work that valued me, found Jennifer who mentored me, found Brandon who partnered with me. I rebuilt everything, career, confidence, identity, became someone I'm proud of, someone my mother is proud of, but none of it feels complete without you. I reached into my pocket, pulled out the small box. Her hands went to her mouth. You've chosen me every day since we met, supported my risks, celebrated my wins, steadied me through doubts. You see me clearly and love what you see. That's the rarest gift. I opened the box. The ring caught morning light, simple and sure. Diane, will you marry me? Not because I can provide, not because I'm acceptable, but because we choose each other. Equal, full, complete. She was crying, nodding before words came. Yes, she said. Yes, Marcus, completely yes. I slid the ring on her finger and she kissed me, tasting like tears and coffee and futures being built. We sat on the dock holding each other, and I felt the final piece of something click into place. Not healing exactly. Evolution. Becoming who I was always meant to be when someone finally gave me permission to grow. We called our families that afternoon. My mother screamed joy so loud I had to pull the phone away. About time, baby. I was starting to think you'd forgotten everything I taught you about not letting good things go. Diane's parents reacted with equal enthusiasm, her father saying he'd been hoping for this, her mother already planning engagement parties. Brandon texted, "Finally, I was placing bets on when you'd ask. Took you long enough." The world felt right, aligned, like every choice I'd made had been necessary to arrive at this specific moment with this specific woman. Sunday, we drove back to the city engaged, planning futures over road trip snacks and terrible radio. Diane wanted a small wedding, intimate, meaningful, about commitment, not performance. I wanted whatever she wanted, having learned that partnership meant supporting visions instead of imposing them. We talked about timelines and guest lists and whether to marry in Atlanta or New York. Every decision was made together, equal input, equal weight. No one's family mattered more. No one's preference dominated. Just two people building something that belonged to both of them. June arrived with momentum. The firm landed its biggest client, multinational corporation needing comprehensive risk assessment for Asian market expansion. The contract was substantial, 6 figures, validation that we'd built something real. Brandon and I hired 3 more analysts, moved to offices with actual conference rooms, started planning second-year growth. My salary exceeded anything I'd imagined in Philadelphia, but more than money, I had ownership. My name on the door, my values in the work, my future tied to my competence, not someone else's approval. Wedding planning consumed evenings. Diane wanted October in Atlanta, outdoors, 100 people maximum. Her mother helped with planning, my mother with guest lists. They worked together naturally. 2 women who understood that their children's marriage was about the couple, not the parents. No drama, no competing, just genuine joy for what we'd found. I watched them collaborate and thought about Sarah's mother, about being called the +1, about families that divided instead of united. The contrast was stark. The relief was complete. July brought unexpected contact. An email from Sarah. Subject line, "Congratulations." I stared at it for 3 minutes before opening. "Marcus, I saw your engagement announcement on LinkedIn. Congratulations to you and Diane. I also saw the news about your firm. You've done incredibly well. I wanted to say I'm sorry for how I treated you, how my family treated you, how I let them diminish you. You deserved better. You clearly found it. I hope you're happy. I really do. Sarah." I read it twice, looking for manipulation, finding only regret. I showed Diane. She read it, handed back my phone. "How do you feel?" she asked. I thought about it honestly. Nothing. Maybe glad she recognizes what she lost, but it doesn't change anything. That version of me who needed her validation is gone. This version doesn't. Diane nodded. "You going to respond?" I shook my head. Some chapters don't need epilogues. That one ended when I chose myself. Her apology is hers to give, not mine to acknowledge. I deleted the email, deleted Sarah from LinkedIn, closed that door completely. August, we flew to Atlanta for final wedding preparations. Diane's family welcomed me like I'd always belonged. Her father pulled me aside one evening. "My daughter is remarkable, strong, brilliant, kind. You know this." I nodded. I raised her to never settle, to choose partnership over convenience, to demand she be valued, not tolerated. You're the first man she's brought home who understood that without being taught." He paused. "Thank you for seeing her, for choosing her, for being someone worthy of her choosing you back." The rehearsal dinner was warm, full, joyful. Both families mixing naturally, my mother and Diane's mother laughing like old friends, cousins comparing notes on our childhood stories. Speeches were made, Brandon's funny, my mother's tearful, Diane's father's proud. Then Diane's mother stood, glass raised. To Marcus and Diane, to two people who found each other by first finding themselves, to partnership that grows instead of shrinks, to love that chooses daily, to futures built together. We drank to that, and sitting there, surrounded by people who saw me clear and loved what they saw, I felt complete. October the 15th arrived perfect. Atlanta weather cooperated. 75 degrees, sun bright, sky cloudless. The venue was a garden estate outside the city, oak trees and fountains and space for 100 people to witness two people choosing each other completely. I stood at the altar with Brandon beside me, watching guests arrive. My mother in the front row, wearing blue and pride and satisfaction of seeing investment return. Diane's parents across the aisle, beaming with joy for their daughter's choice. Music started. Diane appeared at the garden entrance, and everything else disappeared. She wore simple ivory, elegant without being ostentatious, her natural beauty needing no enhancement. Her father walked her down the aisle, his face showing the particular bittersweetness of fathers giving daughters to futures they won't fully share. But when he placed her hand in mine, he smiled. Genuine, complete, trusting. "Take care of each other," he whispered. We promised we would. The ceremony was short, personal, written by us for us. No religious scripts we didn't believe, no traditional language that didn't fit. Just promises we meant. To choose daily, to support growth, to be honest when honesty hurt, to build partnership that made both of us larger instead of smaller. The officiant asked if I took Diane. I said yes without hesitation. She asked if Diane took me. "Completely," Diane said, her voice steady and sure. We exchanged rings, hers matching mine, equal symbols of equal commitment. "I now pronounce you married," the officiant said. "You may kiss." I did, thoroughly, while 100 people applauded the beginning of something built to last. The reception was joy incarnate, food that told stories, music that made people dance, speeches that made everyone laugh and cry. My mother toasted to choices and consequences, to children who exceeded expectations, to love that liberated instead of confined. Diane's father spoke about partnership and respect, about watching his daughter find someone who matched her strength. Brandon gave a speech about Penn State dorm rooms and ramen budgets and how far we'd come by betting on ourselves when others bet against us. Then Diane stood, microphone in hand. "I want to say something about my husband." The word husband made my chest tight. 2 years ago, Marcus walked into a wine bar and changed my life. Not because he was perfect, but because he was real. He just left a relationship that diminished him, a job that dismissed him, a city that kept him small. He was rebuilding everything from scratch. Career, confidence, identity, and he did it with integrity that never wavered. She looked at me, eyes bright. He taught me that love isn't about being acceptable. It's about being chosen, fully, completely, without reservation. "Marcus, you chose yourself when everyone else wanted you manageable. Thank you for then choosing me." I stood, pulled her close, kissed her while everyone cheered. We danced first dance to a song we'd chosen together, held each other while the world spun around us, feeling the weight and gift of commitment made public. Later, dancing with my mother, she whispered in my ear, "You did good, baby. Better than good. You became the man I raised you to be, the one who knows his worth and demands others recognize it. I'm so proud." I held her tight, feeling everything she'd sacrificed, everything she'd given, everything she'd modeled about love and strength and refusing to settle. The party continued into night. At some point, I found myself outside, alone for a moment, looking at stars above Atlanta sky. I thought about journey here, Philadelphia apartment where I'd felt invisible, Detroit bedroom where I'd rebuilt, New York office where I'd proven myself, cabin dock where I'd proposed. Every hard choice, every moment of choosing growth over comfort had led here. To this garden, this woman, this life built on values instead of convenience. Diane found me, slipped her hand into mine. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. I pulled her close. About being the plus one. About signing receipts for celebrations that weren't mine. About 3 years of making myself smaller so someone else could stay comfortable. I paused. And about how far that feels from here. How different this feels. How right. She leaned her head on my shoulder. "You were never the plus one, Marcus. You were always the whole equation. Some people just couldn't do the math." We stood there, husband and wife, watching our families and friends celebrate inside. The music drifted out, laughter and joy mixing with autumn air. "You ready to go back in?" Diane asked. I was ready for everything. The reception, the honeymoon, the marriage, the life we'd build together. Ready. Because I'd learned the hardest lesson. That being chosen started with choosing yourself. That love worth having never asked you to be smaller. That the only validation that mattered was the kind you gave yourself by doing work worth doing and building life worth living. We walked back inside together, equal partners returning to celebration that honored both of us equally. And as we danced and laughed and toasted with people who saw us clear and loved what they saw, I felt something I'd been chasing since that dinner in Philadelphia 2 years ago. Not revenge exactly, not vindication, something better and deeper and more lasting. I felt free. Free from needing approval from people who'd never give it. Free from performing for families who'd never accept me. Free from being acceptable when I deserved to be chosen. Sarah's mother had called me the plus one. She'd been right, in her way. I was the plus one. The one who'd been added to Sarah's life to fulfill a function, to provide resources, to fit in spaces designed to keep me marginal. But that person was gone now, left behind in a Philadelphia apartment with furniture I didn't want and a life that never fit. The person standing here, dancing with his wife in an Atlanta garden, wasn't anyone's plus one. He was the whole equation, the complete story, the main character in a life he'd built by choosing himself when everyone else had wanted him to choose their comfort. The party ended near midnight. Diane and I left in a vintage car her father had rented, tin cans trailing behind, guests throwing flower petals. We drove to the hotel where we'd spend our wedding night before flying to Italy for honeymoon. In the car, she took my hand. "Happy?" she asked. I was. Happier than I'd known was possible. Happy not because I'd proven something to Sarah or her family or Richard or anyone else who'd dismissed me. Happy because I'd proven something to myself, that I was worth choosing, worth valuing, worth building a life around. That the only validation I needed was the kind I earned through competence and gave myself through choice. We arrived at the hotel, walked through the lobby to our suite. Inside, Atlanta glowed through floor-to-ceiling windows, the city where Diane had been raised, where her family lived, where we just promised ourselves to each other in front of everyone who mattered. She kicked off her shoes, turned to me, still wearing her wedding dress. "I love you, Marcus Thompson. Completely, fully, without reservation." I pulled her close, feeling the weight and gift of being loved by someone who chose me daily, who saw me clearly, who wanted exactly what she saw. "I love you too," I said. "Thank you for choosing me, for seeing me, for being the kind of partner who makes me better by expecting better." We stood there, husband and wife in the quiet after celebration, in the space between wedding and marriage, in the moment before future became present. And I thought about my name, Marcus Thompson, and how different it felt now than it had 2 years ago. Then it had been something apologetic, something I whispered, something that came after other people's names and identities. Now it was on a business door, on a marriage license, on a life I'd built by refusing to stay small for people who needed me invisible. Now, tell me in the comments, what would you have done in Marcus's place? Leave your comment, like this video, and don't forget to subscribe. And if you want another powerful story, click on the video appearing to your left.